So, before I get into the sermon, I just want to raise up the turbulence that's in our world right now. The last week has been incredibly difficult and frightening and infuriating. I have felt those feelings, frightened and infuriated, terrified. And so I wanted to take a moment just to, Amy was mentioning something felt off, and there maybe was a little wobble with the reading, but there's something in the air for me right now that feels off. I think our world is not supposed to be operating the way it is. And that's discombobulating to everything. I want to raise a name for us to be in remembrance of this morning. That's Renee Nicole Good. That's the woman who was killed in Minneapolis. Renee Nicole Good. Can we say her name together one time? Renee Nicole Good. Yeah. In regard to that situation, I'm thinking about two things. I'm thinking about these monks that are walking from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. And I'm thinking about them because even in the midst of something so horrifying as what happened to Renee, there was also a counterbalance somewhere in the universe, and that, for me, is these monks walking for peace every day, in the snow, in the rain, across the South, with thousands and thousands of people pouring out of their homes, not Buddhists, but people of all traditions and no tradition, wishing them luck, praying for them, asking for blessings, police escorting them. So in one sense, we have this terrible tragedy. In another sense, we have something else, an uplifting moment. The other thing I'd like to raise up is a man named Fred Rogers, who many of people my age will know as Mr. Rogers. When he was a little boy, he would get scared listening to the news on the radio and seeing his father read the paper. And his mother counseled him, whenever you see these horrifying things, these scary things, these terrifying things, also look for the helpers. Because everywhere in these situations, there are helpers. And so when I'm looking for my own mission in these moments, it lives right there, to find in myself the helper. So I just wanted to raise that up before I get started into this sermon. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for letting me log some hours in the pulpit. I am a seminarian, so I'm in my third year of seminary at Meadville Lombard Theological School up in Chicago. So being in the pulpit is still new to me. As I said, I have a background in acting and in performance, so there's pieces of it that feel familiar, but this is new. It's quite lovely here in the Midwest, I have to say, as I'm originally born and raised in West Texas, and for good reason. Oftentimes Texans get a bad rap, but we have a similar warmth to the warmth I'm experiencing here from people in the Midwest. So being here feels a lot like home. Y'all are really friendly here, really. And so thank you so much for your warmth. As noted, I've been living in Sweden for the last 15 years, or 14. I moved there because I married a Swede. I've got two Swedish daughters who are now teens. And I also have an older son who is from an earlier relationship. And so, yeah, I'm back here in Indiana serving as the intern minister at Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbus, Indiana, UUCCI. I'm there as an intern minister. I'm spending 2 years there in this internship. So hopefully doing a lot of logging hours in the pulpit and learning how to be in a congregation, a UU congregation. So as we kick off this new year, turbulent as it is, I'd like us to explore together what makes a good beginning? What is a beginning? Are beginnings really real? Does anything ever actually begin? Or are all beginnings just part of a cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth? Some sort of eternal process of coming together and falling apart. Just another aspect, maybe, of this continuum of evolving moments like we saw in the story of the Taoist farmer. So I'm always asking myself, questions. Before I was here, for example, where was I? Was there a beginning to me? Did I exist before I was here? Was there some beginning to this concept that I have of me? Was there a single moment where I began, or am I just a manifestation of everything I've experienced in my life? And what about other beginnings? What about the beginning of a new job or a career? Certainly those are beginnings. They feel like beginnings anyway. What about new love? The beginning of a relationship, that's always the fun part. Where everybody's showing up, in their best and always polished and perfect in the honeymoon phase. Everything's blissful there. But as we see with the beginning of this year, actually, not all beginnings are easy peasy. Not all beginnings are blissful and delightful. Sometimes it's mixed. I was present at the births of all three of my children, and I can testify to the fact that as my wife was laboring, if I had raised the idea that all the pain she was experiencing was no big deal because of the beautiful child that was about to come, she would have taught me something about pain. So we might say that some beginnings, like birth, are even painful. Learning something for the first time feels like a painful beginning sometimes, often uncomfortable, embarrassing, full of mistakes, failures. You should see this Texan trying to learn Swedish. Painful is an understatement. Embarrassing, an understatement. Conversely, there's the idea of beginner's luck. We don't know how to do something, so we don't know what not to do. And then we end up doing that thing exceedingly well because we don't know what mistakes are common. We have no biases working against us. We go in with a fresh mind. So this idea for me of fresh-mindedness, this is a juicy idea, an interesting idea for me. Zen master Suzuki Roshi wrote a seminal work called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And in it, he writes this. He writes, "The mind of the beginner is empty, free of the habits of the expert, ready to accept, to doubt, open to all possibilities." So, as we contemplate good beginnings, a question that might surface is, how do we maintain the mind of the one who is always experiencing something fresh and new? A mind empty, free of the habits of the expert, ready to accept, to doubt, open to all possibilities. How do we hold that open mind? To be honest with you, I have no idea how we do this. I really don't. So that will be all. Thank you very much. I'll tell you a quick story. My oldest daughter is 19. Rather than go right into college, she's decided to do some traveling. As part of this plan, she has gone down to Australia to work as a nanny. She got set up with a good family, got all her visa ducks in a row, saved up some money, had a big bon voyage summer of fun with her friends, packed herself up, said goodbye to the dogs and her grandparents. Then her sister, mother, and myself drove her down to the airport in Stockholm, and off she went. Early reports were that she liked the family she was working for, loves Australia, all is well. Of course, in those early days, I'm a worried parent. I'm thinking about her constantly and remembering my own really chaotic process of leaving the nest. I decided to send up some prayers to the indigenous ancestors of that great red desert continent down under. I asked these elders in my mind's eye. I ask them to welcome and protect this foreign child, my beloved daughter. In these prayer moments, I imagine myself telling a group of Aboriginal elders that we had raised our children to be aware of their white Western privilege, to understand their ancestral history of colonialism. I told them that we had taught our children about the beauty and nobility of First Nations people and that our daughter would respect their land and their culture. In my mind's eye, I thank these elders and I ask them to tolerate and protect my daughter while she is a guest there. And I thought these were good prayers, respectful. So, some weeks went by, everything was going well, until the fender bender. Now, nobody got hurt, but there was drama aplenty. While parked on a steep hill, she barely backed up into the bumper of a car that had parked behind her, too close. And that car that she tapped had not set its emergency brake, and down that hill it rolled and crashed into another car and totaled it. Of course, now the owners come out and shouting at her with terrible threats and profanity, and the kids that she was looking after got freaked and cried, and the boss mom on the phone got freaked and cried, and my daughter got freaked and cried, and basically everybody was freaking and crying. It was a significant mess. Luckily, there was an adult female who stepped in, lent a hand, calmed everybody down. Nobody was hurt, and it wasn't entirely my daughter's fault. She barely bumped this other car, which was parked too close, had no functioning brake, et cetera, et cetera. So, now one could make the claim that what started out as a good beginning had turned sour, or that my prayers had gone unanswered or had the opposite effect somehow. But that's not the end of the story. The nanny job at that first family, for other reasons, ended up being short-lived, and so that family needed to give my daughter's room away to another family member, and so she had to find a new situation. And after a couple of weeks, she found a new gig that was even better than the first one. And it also gave her enough time off to get a second job, which she had wanted all along. The second job's waiting tables, which is something she did all through high school, but now the kicker is she's working for a Michelin-starred chef at his brand new restaurant, and every time she calls home, she's just doing backflips saying, Papa, Papa, it's like I'm working at the Bear. I don't know if you've seen this show, but this is a wonderful show. If you haven't seen The Bear, watch it. It's a very spiritual show, actually. It's about a chef who opens a new restaurant. Anyway, so she's just ecstatic. So at various points during this rough beginning of her Australian walkabout, I was prepared to get the call that she's coming home, or that we need to go down there and help, or that something we need to hire a lawyer about this car thing or something. And I've had moments, where I'm wondering about these prayers, like wondering if I made some sort of insulting spiritual mistake by praying for her protection to the spirits of a land that was stolen by people who look like her. And amidst all these worries, though, I found myself remembering the idea, this Buddhist idea, that the point of being human isn't to make our experience all smoothed out and free from ups and downs, but rather it's to deepen our contact with the experience itself. I assume that if they exist, these Aboriginal spirits down under are probably much smarter than me. Maybe they helped her move into this new, better situation because they were looking out for her well-being. Maybe they're teaching her about experiencing every moment more fully. Maybe they were teaching her about courage, about resilience. The Buddhist nun Pema Chodron writes in her book, When Things Fall Apart. She writes this: we think that if we just meditated enough or jogged enough or ate perfect food, everything would be perfect. But from the point of view of someone who is awake, that is death. Seeking security or perfection, rejoicing and feeling confirmed and whole, self-contained and comfortable is some kind of death. It doesn't have any fresh air. There's no room for something to come in and interrupt all that. We're killing the moment by controlling our experience. Doing this sets us up for failure because sooner or later, she writes, we're going to have an experience we can't control. House is going to burn down, someone we love is going to die, we're going to find we have cancer, or a brick's going to fall out of the sky and hit us on the head. Somebody's going to spill tomato juice all over our new white suit. Or we're going to arrive at our favorite restaurant and discover that no one ordered produce and 700 people are coming for lunch. She continues, the essence of life is that it's challenging. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's bitter. Sometimes your body tenses, sometimes it relaxes and opens. Sometimes you have a headache, sometimes you feel 100% healthy. From an awakened perspective, trying to tie up all the loose ends and finally get it all together is death because it involves rejecting a lot of our basic experience. There's something aggressive about that approach to life, trying to flatten out all the rough spots, all the imperfections into a nice smooth ride. I think what Annie Pema is suggesting here is that we should open to it all. The fun, the boredom, the deliciousness, the grief, the loneliness, the moments of confidence, of doubt, outrage, the joys, struggles, sorrows, wins, losses, moments of messiness, and moments of sublime synchronicity. Life in a body contains all these experiences. One could argue that all experiences, then, are sacred. Not just the ones that we label as good or bad, but all experiences, sacred. One could even say holy. I will argue for the holiness of our experience for this one reason. No human being that has ever been or will ever be will experience reality through my body, through your body. Like the endless diversity of the snowflake or the sunrise, no human being will ever have exactly the same experience that you have. Every person that has ever lived has seen the world through their own particular filters, and as such, our experiences are the one thing that belong wholly and completely to each and every person who has ever lived. So seen in this way, every single moment that we're alive is perfect, sacred, holy. Every moment is a beginning. Amen. May it be so. Omitakoyas.